Hello, traders. This is Jason with MotiveWave. Welcome to today's webinar, Discover What's New with MotiveWave. Before we get started here, can I get a quick mic check? Maybe just in the Zoom Q&A. Can someone just let me know if my mic is working? Yep, perfect. Thanks, everybody. Right on. Okay, so let's jump in. So some of the topics we will be covering today are the new table framework. So that includes the DOM, Watchlist, etc., multiple and persistent replay mode accounts, Heikin-Ashi for nonlinear bars, DOM and volume imprint updates, trade copier, auto login, and then at the end, we're going to discuss some of our future plans for version 7. I'd like to thank you all for taking the time out of your day to attend. Today's presentation will be approximately 30 to 35-ish minutes, and there will be a Q&A session at the end of the presentation. There should be a Q&A button at the bottom of Zoom, or you'll be able to type in your questions. It's just me today, so I will not be able to get to any of the questions until the very end. And the webinar recording will be posted to our YouTube channel within 24 hours. And if you're watching this webinar on YouTube, please like, share, and subscribe. Before we get into the content, I need to go over a quick disclaimer. There's substantial risk of loss in trading commodity futures, options, stocks, equities, indices, cryptocurrencies, and foreign exchange products. Futures and options trading has large potential reward, but also large potential risk. You must be aware of these risks and be willing to accept them in order to invest in the markets. And please don't trade with money you can't afford to lose. We've posted CFTC Rule 4.41 for you to read. And MotiveWave has a 14-day risk-free trial. You can sign up at motivewave.com. So the first thing I want to talk about today is the table framework and the watch list. So as you may have noticed, many of the panels that use the table functionality have been rewritten in recent releases. So this includes the DOM, order book, watch list, time and sales, orders, positions, accounts panels, etc. So this was done for greater flexibility in the future and to make the platform more efficient and streamlined. Most of these panels, you would not have noticed very many changes, maybe some slight changes, but the functionality should have stayed largely the same. One of the ones that did not stay the same was the watch list. Here we've changed up some of the functionality. So let's take a look at these changes. So one thing to note is that the underlying format changed for the watch list. So this means that the watch list for version 6.9 is not backwards compatible with earlier versions. So please make sure you save a workspace backup before making the update. You can also copy one of your automated backups from the MotiveWave backup folder. Maybe too late now since version 6.9 has come and gone for a while. Okay, so let's jump into the watch list. So previously we separated the watch list from the quote sheets. So the quote sheets were only available in the professional and ultimate editions. And for those of you that don't have one of these editions, essentially the quote sheet allowed you to create groups within the watch list. This functionality has been combined and is now available in all editions. So we renamed the groups and we now call them sections. So if we want to create a section, all we have to do is click the Add Section button at the bottom of the watch list, and you can give it a name. So for instance, we could call this Section 1. And then if we want to, we can change the header color of that section by enabling the text colors, clicking the pencil icon, and then you can change the fill color. So that just changes the header color. You can change the text color, the font, and size. And you can also set that specific section to a certain link color. So all we have to do is click OK, and now we have our section 1 right here. All right, so to make editing watch lists more convenient, we remove the edit watch list pop-up dialog box, and you can now edit the watch list by the instrument in the watch list, by adding the instrument in the watch list itself. So before we used to have that little pencil icon up top, and you could click that, go into the dialog, and start to add instruments. We thought that was not really necessary anymore, so we removed that. So in order to add an instrument, the first and most obvious method would be at the bottom of the watch list by selecting the search add button here. So you can select that, and you can see that it actually turns into a drop-down menu, same as the one you'd have in the top toolbar. So you can start typing. We could add MES M4, hit enter, and it's going to add the instrument for us. The next option you could do is by clicking this magnifying glass. So this is the same magnifying glass as we have up in the top toolbar. What that's going to do is that's going to allow you to search your connection to make sure you're adding the correct instrument. So this is really helpful for if you're using interactive brokers and you're adding an equity. They may have multiple results. So you could have an instrument on the London Stock Exchange, New York Stock Exchange. So this is just a good way to get the correct instrument. If you have sections in your watch list, you can also add an instrument to that specific section by clicking this little plus icon here. So I click that, it's gonna have the drop-down menu, or we have the little magnifying glass here. So that'll just add it to that specific section. And if you find these search and add buttons a little intrusive, they can be disabled by going to the hamburger menu, which is this three line menu up top here, and then selecting or deselecting edit mode. So that's just going to make those, make your watch list a little cleaner if you want. You can add them back by enabling edit mode. So if you'd like to remove an instrument from a watch list, all you have to do is right-click the instrument and select remove tickers. In this right-click menu, let me bring that back up again. You can see we have various options for opening a chart or DOM, editing the instrument, and importing data. And to rearrange the watch list order, you can click on any of the column headers to sort based on values ascending or descending. This is the same as you could do with the previous watch list. And you can also click and drag on the symbol to move it anywhere you want. So one thing to note is you need to click on the actual symbol here. So don't try to click anywhere else like the high, low column. Just click on the symbol and drag it down to the section that you want. You can also use the Control or Shift to select multiple and click and drag those. So it's actually quite easy to rearrange how you see fit. All right, so that's pretty simple. And if you'd like to modify some of the table row colors and watch list colors, this can now be done in the Configure Preferences menu. I'll move that over here and go to Theme and then Table. So this table is a new tab that we added. The even and odd row colors will be the colors that are used for all the tables within your workspace. So this includes the watch list, the DOM, time and sales, account panels, etc. And the next options below will allow you to change the look and feel of the watch list. So this includes the arrow type, color, and also the font and background colors. Down at the bottom here, we have the update interval. And this will be how often the watch list is updated. So this is in milliseconds. And below that, we have the up-down delay. All this does is this is just the length of time that the arrow and colors are displayed after an uptick or downtick before reverting to their default colors, which would be, in this case, would be white. So that's just a quick overview of our new watch list. So let's move on to the next thing, and that is multiple and persistent replay accounts. So let me just jump over to the accounts page here. And a persistent replay account allows you to carry your trade history and P&L between replay sessions. So in order to create one of these accounts, just go to your account page, which we're here already, and then click this plus icon drop-down menu here and select replay account. We can give it a name. You could call it replay 1, that's fine. And then you can select your currency, your initial balance, your cash balance, and then click OK. And you can see that we now have a persistent replay account. So let's go ahead and jump over to a chart, open up replay mode, and we just need to do one thing in order to use this persistent replay account. You need to actually go into your replay settings and then select this use existing account here under replay account, and then select the persistent replay account that you've created. And you can also have multiple accounts if you want. So these accounts are persistent, so you don't have to worry about turning off your replay mode. That could be handy if you want to, test multiple strategies at the same time. You could use one strategy per replay account. So that could be quite handy. All right, so while we're discussing kind of account-related features, let's talk about the trade copier feature. So this feature was added way back in version 6.7, and this feature is geared towards futures traders that would like to copy their trades to multiple sub-accounts, or between brokerage accounts, maybe using different connection technologies. Maybe they want CQG to Rhythmic or whatever. So in order to create a trade copier account, you go to the accounts page and select this plus icon dropdown. You probably saw this earlier, but we now have the option for the trade copier account. So first thing we have to do is give it a name. So we can just call it, trade copier. And then you select a lead account. And then you can enter in follower accounts. So if you have multiple accounts, some funded futures type accounts allow up to 20. So you could have up to 20 accounts here. You can set the quantity multiplier. You can enable cross trade. So instead of trading, ES, if you enable cross trade, this account will trade MES instead. And if you want to add another account, you just click this little green plus icon here, select your account, and set any of the other details, just like that. Then select OK, and you can see that our trade copier is now in our accounts. So in order to place trades on all your connected copier accounts, you need to actually select that trade copier account from the account dropdown. Let's say, let's bring up some charts here. So you actually need to select the trade copier account. That may seem obvious, but just so you know, you can't select the lead account. You need to actually select the actual virtual trade copier account. And when using the trade copier account, be sure to have an orders and positions panel visible at all times. If you lose connection, receive an error message, or we do not receive confirmation from the broker for an individual order or modification, it can cause a number of problems. And you may be required to manually close positions individually. So just make sure you have the orders and positions panel visible so you can see if that happens. And if you receive an error or suspect something may be off, let's say you place a trade and the trade doesn't actually show up in your position in your DOM or something like that. What you can actually do, the first thing you should do is actually go to your positions panel or your orders panel, whichever one, and press this little refresh button here. So that's just going to go out and it's going to manually refresh your orders and positions from your broker. So that is the first step you should take if anything seems to go wrong. All right, so let's jump on to the next topic, which is Heikin-Ashi for nonlinear bars. So this feature has been requested by many users and it is finally here. It's been requested for years now. So we now have the ability to use Heikin-Ashi on nonlinear bars. So to use these, all you have to do is set a nonlinear bar size. So for example, we have the ES here. We could just use a range, I don't know, range 8 bar. And then just go to the bar type drop-down menu here and select Heikin-Ashi candle. And there we go. So that's been, a lot of people have wanted that for years, so we finally have it. Hopefully that makes some users happy. All right, next thing to talk about is in version 6.9.1, we added a new clock panel. So you can display the time in a much larger format. It's kind of hard to see a clock, small little clock at the very bottom right-hand corner of your screen, excuse me. Just not ideal for a lot of people. So we added a basic clock. And in order to add a clock, all you have to do is click the plus icon, like you're adding a chart, and just select clock down at the bottom there. So here, let's go through some of the available options. I have a couple clocks up here. Just click the gear icon to go into the preferences. And the first option allows you to set the time zone. So for instance, I'm in mountain time. but I could display any other time I wanted. Let's say I want Eastern time. So let's see if I can find it. Am I that quick? Probably not. Let's try for New York. That's good. In the next time format, you can select from a variety of different options. If it says AM and PM, that's going to show you a 12-hour clock, and the other options are going to show you a 24-hour clock. You can set the clock font here. So we could set it much larger if we wanted to, maybe a 50-point size. And there's also the option to display a location. So if you just select Enable and click OK, it's going to read and use this city name. So let me just do this for you. So it's gonna actually show New York there. But if you want to change that actual location, all you have to do is type in any location you want. So let's say today I want to be in Miami. Just click OK. And we have Miami showing there. So that's kind of nice. And you can have multiple clocks. You can have as many clocks as you want open. So this one, you could do something like, oh, I don't know. You could do Hong Kong if you wanted Hong Kong. So you could do, oh, that doesn't really look right, does it? Maybe not Hong Kong. I'm not sure what's going on with that time zone, but you could do something else. Like you could put London in there or any other time. All right, so yeah, that's kind of a neat little tool that we added in. The next thing I'm going to talk about is the AutoConnect, which, as everybody has probably already seen, but in version 6.9, we added the ability to AutoConnect to your broker or data service without the need to click connect. So not really a huge deal, but this can irritate some users. If you're logging into multiple connections in your workspace, it's just a few extra clicks that you don't really need to do. So all you have to do is select this AutoConnect, and it's just going to connect. Connect to your broker without you needing to click the login button, I guess, or the connect button. What else do we have here? So this one thing to note on this though is that this feature will not work for connections that require browser-based logins. Just kind of the way it is because it needs to pop up a browser. So next thing let's talk about is the DOM updates. So as we mentioned earlier, the DOM table has been completely rewritten. This was done a few versions ago. Some of you might have noticed already. And what that did was actually remove some of these graphical glitches that would occasionally appear on the old DOM table. So some of you might have seen that, where a level would just go blank. It was just kind of a thing with Java, the Java tables we were using, that would just cause a level to go blank. So we've rewritten the entire table. I don't think it does that anymore. I haven't seen it yet. So hopefully the new table is all good. So one other feature we added is, let me bring up the DOM preferences here, is the ticks per row setting. So this is a nice little setting that will combine price levels, which is extremely useful for large range or volatile instruments like the NQ. So for instance, we could combine four ticks together so that, let me just click apply here so you can see. So the ES is only showing every point instead of every quarter point. So the drop down next to this setting will let you select how you want to aggregate the price levels. So setting it to up will collect the rows, all the rows up. For example, you do 5250 25, 5250 50, 5250 75, and 5251 even. And down will collect the rows down. So that's the exact opposite. And the default setting is offer up, bid down, and this will aggregate the offer side up and the bid size down. So this is a nice option to have, so you won't have the same price for the bid and offer. Then the last option is round, and this will just round up or down to the nearest price level. So next little DOM update we did is we added a hotkey that can reset all the at bid and at ask columns for all open DOMs. So this can actually be found in the configure preferences menu. under the keyboard setting. So if you search for at bid, you can see reset all at bid and at ask. So you could set a hotkey for that. So that's a nice little quality of life improvement. And while we're in the shortcuts, I guess I should mention that we added the ability to filter the shortcuts, as you can see, which is a nice time saver. This list was getting quite massive, so the ability to filter is very handy. All right, so next DOM update we did. We added another method to place a quick bracket or OCO order on the DOM. So this is found, let me just expand this a little bit. This is found up on the DOM top kind of header area here. All you have to do is click this power button, and then this will light up. And this is just a little selector for your bracket. So you can select limit plus stop, etc. Limit plus stop is the default. And now all you have to do is click in on the bid column or the offer column and to set your bracket. So let me do that now just to show you guys. Actually, first of all, let me take down my ticks per row, set it back to normal. Let's say I was in a position and I just wanted to add a bracket. All I have to do, click there, click once there, and then click once there. And then it's going to send that order. So it's pretty simple, very quick way to add a bracket order. And one other addition, I guess before I move on, one thing to note is that always resets itself. So it's always going to turn itself off. That's just to kind of save the trader. I don't think it will be used very often where you'd need to do that more than once at a time. So it just resets itself, just so you guys know that. And another recent addition to the DOM is for standalone DOMs. So let me just switch over here, and we can see we have a standalone DOM. So standalone meaning you just added a DOM here. It's not attached to a chart. So you now have the ability to cross trade in a standalone DOM. And in order to enable this, all you have to do is right click anywhere on the table and select cross trade and then the instrument. And what you'll notice here in the top left corner of the DOM, it's going to show you the text that says cross trade. And if you want to disable this, all you have to do, right click again and disable cross trade. So fairly nice. And while we're kind of talking about standalone DOMs, I have to mention that in 6.9.1, we also added the ability to link standalone DOMs, order books, time and sales panels. So previously this was not possible. You had to use an attached DOM or time and sales panel. And by attached, hopefully all of you know what I'm referring to, but attached to a chart. So if you wanted to open a DOM, you'd click this button here, and this DOM was essentially attached to that chart. And these standalone items are not attached to anything, so they can be, so they could never really be linked to anything. So we actually added linking to these panels. So we can see in the DOM here, you could set maybe a green color to this DOM. To the chart, you could set it to green color. And now to the time and sales, we can link to a green color. And then you could go through a watch list. So go to MES, you go to YM, MNQ, and everything's going to change here. Please ignore, I have some kind of demo account data here, so it doesn't look super great on the DOM, but so that is standalone panel linking, which is kind of handy. And next up, let's jump over to some of the volume imprint updates. So let me just jump over, bring up this chart here. And quickly, we'll touch on these. So the first thing we added, which you may have seen already, is the high volume node and low volume node markers. So high volume node is just obviously a high volume point within a volume profile, low volume being low volume point. So display type you can set to none. You can have it high volume nodes only, low volume nodes only, or both. The line, so this is this line here. You can have it extend. So by default, I think it's set to next profile. So let me just enable that. What that's going to do is that's going to extend that HVN or LVN forward until it is intersected by a future profile. So we can see these ones right here were intersected by this profile, so they stop. And then the rest of them that aren't intersected keep going forward. The other option would be session. So we can apply that and we can see that it's just going to extend those lines to the end of session. Or if you want, you could disable those lines entirely and just see the markers on the profile itself. All right, so let me get on to a different chart here. Let's bring up a footprint chart. And then I'll bring up the settings here and quickly show you that the total section here. So we've added the option to display volume per second and also time per bar. Time per bar obviously is useful on nonlinear bars, not very useful on linear bars. One other thing we did was if you have a total section enabled, the MotiveWave.com watermark used to be down below here and it would kind of get in the way and kind of cover up some of the text there. So now it's going to recognize if this total section is enabled, it's just going to bump this watermark up to the top left corner so it doesn't interfere. Let's jump over now to the display tab. So we have added a few options here. We've added a color method. So we've added, it was always based on delta before. Now we've added a volume color method. So you can see it's now have the option to base on that volume on that period there. So let's go back to delta quickly. What else do we add? We added a reverse gradient as well. So if you don't like the way the gradient is being drawn, you can reverse it. And we've also added a contrast slider. So you can decrease the contrast of the colors here. Kind of a nice little option. If you find the colors, maybe we're getting a little too dark. That's what I kind of found without this contrast slider. It was maybe contrast was a little high and some of the higher level, the higher delta values were going a little too dark. So now you can adjust that to your liking. One other thing we added was the histogram scaling. So previously the histogram scaling was just per bar. So what it would do is just look at this bar and say, what's the highest delta value? And then scale all the colors based on that value. So that is the default setting, but now we have the option to scale all the colors based on the visible bars. So what that's going to do is say, hey, within these visible bars, what's the highest delta value? And let's scale all the colors based on that now. And then so we have that, and we also have the ability to scale all the colors based on the full session. Just a few more options for the volume imprint. So that's kind of another nice option. So next thing we're going to talk about quickly is just some other kind of smaller items. So one thing is let's go over the count page. The trade history, used to call it trade history, is now renamed to executions. We found that just to be a more fitting name. The orders and position panels now include an account filter. So you can, filter any of the orders or any of the positions based on whatever account you have. That's kind of nice. The exit strategy bracket, let's actually go take a look at that now. So exit strategy bracket orders can now be modified before the order is submitted and filled. So before, if you placed a bracket order, an exit strategy bracket order, you could move this, but you couldn't move the stop and the limits. Now you can move these before the order is actually filled or submitted. So that's a nice little addition. And what else do we have? It looks like TPO. So the TPO study now allows you to merge and split TPOs, even if regular versus extended session is enabled. So let me just quickly jump in here. So this setting right here, split regular versus extended session, what this does is it draws two profiles for you. It draws kind of like in overnight session and then a regular trading hour session. And when that was enabled before, you couldn't actually right click and split and merge any of the profiles. So that's now available. That was asked by many people for a long time. So that's all I really have to cover today in regards of recent updates in 6.7, 6.8, and 6.9. So let's take a few minutes to discuss our future plans with version 7, which development has started very recently. So I'll start out by saying that nothing is set in stone and plans can change, depending on development obstacles. But these are some of the items that we'll be trying to implement. Most users may not notice, however, the charts will be rewritten in version 7. So this is being done so that our analyses will be compatible with our mobile app and to increase efficiency. So we are aiming to have the ability to use a cloud workspace and have all your analyses available in the mobile app and the desktop app. So these two analyses can be shared between them. Right now that can't be done, but with this rewrite, that should be possible. So along with the updated charts, there will be other numerous benefits for separate graph studies. More scaling options is something we're looking into. Another top priority for version 7 is to make it easier for our users to copy objects like support and resistance zones between multiple charts. So I think this is used by a lot of users. What you need to do is you set up a titled analysis, and then you put your support and resistance zone on that title analysis. And then you actually have to use study and component visibility settings to show or hide specific settings, or excuse me, show or hide specific studies if you want them on, this bar size versus another bar size, just so that you can get all those support and resistance zones to line up on all your charts. This is obviously way too complicated, and we plan to offer a simpler solution. Currently, our idea is to simplify everything and allow you to just add multiple title analysis per chart. So you could have one analysis that has just your support and resistance zones, and you can just plot that on any chart you want. So that would make it much easier, way less complicated. So that is one large item we're hoping to complete for version 7. For the volume imprint study, we plan to make a few small updates, kind of get things, add a few more features, a few more updates there. For the TPO study, we'd like to bring it up to the next level. We're lacking some features in the TPO study. We'd like to add a little bit more. And hopefully have the ability to scale it on the chart so that each box is the same width. Right now, with our TPO study, where did I have that? Right here. It kind of, the width of the profile is dependent on the underlying chart. We'd like to just add an additional scaling method that would make sure that each of these TPO boxes is the same width. It's going to look a lot better and a lot more consistent. So that's another one we're hoping to get done. For the scanner, we'd like to add the ability to scan based on different criteria, such as the instrument price, instrument volume, daily change, etc. That's currently not possible. These are just basic things that we'd like to add back in. I think it'll offer a lot more flexibility for our scanner. Also, for the scanner to run, people have asked for it to run, bet on a certain time schedule, say every 5 minutes or whatever. That's something that we'll look into as well. So along with the features I just mentioned, we have plans for many other updates and quality of life improvements. As of this moment, we plan to roll out version 7 the same way we did for version 6, which will include beta versions. So you can either stay on the last version of version 6, or you can update to the version 7 beta builds and kind of help us test those. We do test the best we can, but sometimes, when you make a lot of changes, there are some unforeseen bugs. So as a timeline, we don't really yet have a timeline on when the first version 7.0 beta build would be released. If I had to take a wild guess, we may be looking in, a couple months. I'm not quite sure though. We don't exactly have a first date yet, but it's probably going to be more in the months, not days or weeks, anything like that. And just to wrap this up, if you have a great feature that you think would improve the platform, I would say, just as always, send an email to support@motivewave.com to submit a feature request. We look at every single one of your feature requests. We log them, keep track of them. We like to see if there are trends, if people are requesting, the same thing over and over again. We try our best to implement those. But yeah, you can go ahead and submit any feature request to support@motivewave.com. We'll take a look at it. If you want to submit one here as well in the Q&A, you can do that. I have access to the Q&A logs after the fact. So if you want to throw in a request for version 7, throw it in the Q&A right now. But yeah, so that concludes the presentation. Let me just take a look at the questions here and see if I can answer anything.